Welcome back to the podcast. How to identify your trauma and how to heal through it step by step. That's exactly what we're going to be doing today on today's podcast. So if you are into healing, you're on your self-growth healing journey, this is going to be awesome for you. Whether you've done any work before or you're fresh, you've done all the plant medicine ceremonies, the therapy, the breath work, the meditations, it doesn't matter what you've done, what stage you're at, you are going to get a ton of value from this podcast. So with that being said, I'm going to be sharing my video, like my screen today. So if you've got the capacity to watch the video version of this podcast, I would recommend it. You'll still get value without it, but there's a fair few visuals that will help out with this. So I believe YouTube and Spotify have the video, so go watch it there. If not, you will get value from just listening, but if you can watch the video, please watch the video. So I'm going to kick this off with my definition of what healing is. So this is my definition here. I've got a bigger version of it up here, but this is my short version of it. Inner work or healing in my world is to dissolve and heal the wounds and blockages that are masking your true self. I'll say that again. It is to dissolve and heal the wounds and blockages that are masking your true self. If you've ever heard of the Statue of David quote, I actually have it here somewhere, but I won't be able to find it. But the Statue of David quote teaches this really, really well. If you haven't heard it, the Statue of David, Michelangelo made the Statue of David. Someone asked him, "How did you make such a beautiful sculpture?" And his answer was along the lines of, "David was always in the statue. I just removed everything that wasn't him." So that's a really beautiful analogy for what inner healing is. It's around identifying your coping strategies, your trauma, your wounds, your limiting beliefs, your blocks, dissolving and healing through them, which allow your true self, your authentic self, to shine through. So that's essentially what inner healing is from a big picture perspective. Now, just to go a little layer deeper on it, there are different bodies to heal through. There is the mental body. The mental body is all of your memories, your perceptions, and everything you can consciously, cognitively become aware of. So if you've got memories or pain or hurt that you are aware of, that is a mental body wound. You have emotional wounds, or the emotional body, I should say, which is your nervous system and your emotions. So if you have suppressed emotions that you haven't felt through and expressed yet, and you've suppressed emotions, your nervous system is really dysregulated. You probably have emotional wounds you haven't healed through. We have physical body, which is somatics. If you've ever heard the word somatics, soma means body. So somatics is body work. So if you've ever done something like breath work, some modalities, by the way, touch on multiple bodies, just so you know. But when I think of physical somatic body, the physical body, I think of things like somatic massages. So I've received a kahuna massage, which is a emotional release massage where you physically massage emotions out of your body. You might have heard the issues are in the tissues. So that's where you can store emotions and trauma literally in your body, in the tissues of your body. So you want to use physical somatic tools to heal through that. Then the last body is the spiritual body. That's your level of connectedness to source, oneness, God, spirit, the quantum field, whatever your spiritual beliefs are. It's your level of fulfillment and connectiveness to all that is. Now, that's where your plant medicines, your meditations, your heavy level breath works come into it. Different tools touch on different bodies. That's all you need to know for today. So I'm just going really big picture. As you can tell, I'm about to zoom in very specifically so you can go through this. So this is my model. This is what I do to help people. It's called my Inspired Life Method model. Now, I'm not talking about these ones. I'm talking about the inner work right now. The main three things I help people with, which touch on all of the bodies you just saw, these are the three main types of inner work that I do. I focus with limiting beliefs, trauma and wounds, blocks and shadows. They're the three types of things that I help people with. Now, for today's video, I'm focusing on wounds, which is trauma. So I've done videos on limiting beliefs around the ego. I haven't done too much content on blocks, like energetic emotional blocks. If you've heard of Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he teaches this stuff really, really, really well. It's essentially removing the stored emotions and becoming the emotional frequency of the things you want to attract. So that's what blocks are for me anyways. So today I'm focusing on trauma specifically. So specifically trauma moments in time. So let's go through it. So if you're not watching the video, by the way, guys, I am sharing my screen. So this is called the triggered cycle. When you're triggered, nothing triggers you. It reveals what's inside of you. I'll say that again. Nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. When you are triggered, I invite you to become aware that you're triggered and you don't go unconscious and you just project and blame and give your power away. Take ownership that you're triggered. A trigger is when your nervous system activates. Now, there's obviously a spectrum of triggers. Like you can get like a mental breakdown. You could punch a hole through the wall. You could emotionally snap and go really aggressive. There's different coping strategies, which you'll learn about soon. Or you can just subtly have your nervous system activate. The more healing you do, the more subtle your triggers will become. So there's triggers. You become trigger. A trigger happens. You become aware that you're triggered. You want to find where the wound is coming from, because a trigger is revealing a wound inside of you that you haven't healed through yet. I'm going to dive into this deeper, so stay around. And then once you've found the wound, you want to heal through it. So you get triggered, you're aware that you're triggered, you find the wound that's been revealed, then you heal through it using a tool or a modality that will allow you to heal. That's the triggered cycle. And this never stops, by the way. There's always more healing to be done. So let's get deeper. Trauma is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough. I'll say that again. Trauma is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough. Let's give some examples. It might have been too much pain, rejection, criticism, embarrassment, abuse, overwhelm, invalidation, etc. It could be many, 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 many things. So that is an example of too much. It might have been the not enough wound as well. Not enough love, not enough safety, not enough validation, presence, being heard, being held, supported, etc. This is why you generally have more trauma in childhood, because your ability to look after yourself and protect yourself is a lot less, right? I use a silly example, like say you lose your parents in the shopping center when you're 5 years old. That can be traumatic for a 5-year-old child. Hopefully that's not traumatic for a 25-year-old person, right? But it's still the experience for the child. So when something was too much or not enough, there's a moment in time where that becomes a traumatic experience. So there's the wound itself. I'm going to dive even deeper. In that specific moment in time, trauma is created by a specific action, inaction, or trait. If anyone has done any of Dr. John Demartini's work, he teaches this really, 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 really well. Every perception that we have, it is a combination of actions, inactions, and traits. So when a traumatic event happens, there are specific actions or inactions or traits that are traumatic to you. So there are moments in time when something was too much or not enough, and it was a combination of these either traits, actions, or inactions. I hope you follow me so far. I'm going to use some examples soon. So also, there's a lot here, so I hope you're keeping up with me now. For every trauma you have, you will create a coping strategy to protect and hide the trauma. These are also known as traumatic reactions, coping mechanisms, or shadows, depending on who you're talking to and what coach or therapist you're working with. Because the ego, one of the traits of the ego that I talk about a lot, the ego wants to avoid pain. It wants to keep you safe. That makes sense. So to stop yourself addressing or going near the painful wound, you're going to create armor, walls, protection, coping mechanisms, coping strategies to protect yourself from the wound. Again, makes sense, but it stops you from healing from the wound, right? So something to be aware of. Now, this is where it gets slippery. These coping strategies become the silent puppet master that sabotages your life. This gets really deep. Keep up with me. These coping strategies, which are coming from your unhealed wounds, from your trauma, become the coping strategies that control your life unconsciously. Say you've got a wound around embarrassment or say rejection. So you've had a rejection wound. Your coping strategy might be to disassociate or to shut off or to shut down. So to protect yourself, instead of going up and asking someone out on a date or having a tough conversation or setting a firm boundary because you're scared of being rejected because you have a rejection wound you haven't healed through, you then create a coping strategy of avoiding. It's an avoidant. This happens a lot when you've got avoidant attachment styles. If you've heard of attachment styles, this ties directly into that. So your wounds, unhealed, you will create coping strategies for your wounds. And until you heal them, those coping strategies are the subconscious puppet masters that control your life. This is where you self-sabotage, you hit glass ceilings, and you just keep getting in your own way. Pretty slippery, right? I love this conversation. I really love talking about this stuff. Now, for every trauma you have, you will also be triggered when something reminds you of that trauma. This activates the coping strategy. I hope you're picking up what I'm throwing down. I'm going to do a quick review of that, okay? Because that was a lot. So remember, nothing triggers you. It reveals what's inside of you. Trauma is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough. It will be a specific action, inaction, or trait. A specific action, inaction, and trait. So I'm going to give you like a process of how to identify your own trauma. You will create coping strategies, which are also known as traumatic reactions, coping mechanisms, shadows, to protect the trauma. And these, until you heal them, are the coping strategies, become the self-sabotaging patterns that sabotage your life. And triggers will set these and activate these. I hope you're picking up what I'm throwing down. So, with all that being said, so a lot of context, a lot of teaching there. I hope you picked up what I threw down. How do you become aware of your traumas now? Well, I love the quote. You will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you haven't healed. So, when you're triggered, this is my invitation to you. Become aware that you're triggered. Remember that cycle? Become aware that you're triggered. Now, you want to find the original trauma that it's revealing, and this is how you do that. So when you get triggered, and it will happen most in your relationships or high stressful conditions or with your family, because your family, especially your parents, is generally where most of your trauma is, depending on the childhood that you had growing up. So when you get triggered next, you need to ask yourself, in one word, what is the specific thing that is triggering me? What's the action, inaction, or trait that is triggering me? Is it invalidation? Is it rejection? Is it criticism? Is it manipulation? Is it isolation? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it stress? Is it yelling? There will be a specific trait, action, or inaction that is triggering you. Then, there's a couple ways I dance with this. This is depending on the client that I'm working with. What I generally like doing is finding the earliest memory you have of that trait, or the most painful memory of that trait. Let's use an example. Say your partner does something and you get triggered. And then I say, okay, great. Say it in one word. What's the one word that your partner did or didn't do, or the trait they did that triggered you? And say the answer was rejection. They rejected you. So that means you have a rejection wound. So then I would ask you, what is the earliest or most painful memory you have of rejection? And that might be you're 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old. It doesn't matter. You'll have something come up for you. And whatever memory comes up for you, that's a wound. That's a traumatic moment in time when something was too much or not enough. And then you apply a healing tool to that experience, to that trauma. Now, what tools do you use? There's heaps of tools. The one that I like the most is my balancing tool. My balancing tool is a combination of many tools. It's a combination of DeMartini, of timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, breath work, somatic release techniques, and visualization. I put it all into one tool. It takes between an hour to 3 hours to completely heal it. I'm going to share a story of an example of me doing this. I was working with a one-on-one client, and I won't use her name obviously, but her mum, when she was 6 years old, her mum told her to her face, "I wish I had an abortion instead of having you." That was the moment in time where it was traumatic. It was the traumatic event. It was a moment in time. So I asked her, and she was emotional because it's a traumatic event for a 6-year-old, right? So I asked her, in one word, tell me what is the thing that triggered you or hurt you? Say that event in one word. Now, her word was actually control. That was the word she used. And I'm getting a little bit too deep on this, but when you're doing healing work, be specific. It's one word, one trait, one action, one inaction. And the word, it's not more important of what technically is the right word. It's what the word means to the individual. So for this client I was working with, I wouldn't have used the word control. I would have used abuse. I would have used manipulation. I would have used suppression. Those would have been the types of word I would have used. But that's okay. It's not my wound. It's her wound. So her word was control. Perfect. So we use that word. We go through the process. I go through my balancing process. Within 60 minutes, she is crying her eyes out with love, gratitude. Her heart is open. We integrated the perception. We healed the wound. Within 90 minutes, so we finished this process in about 90 minutes, she's writing a gratitude letter of love to her mum for that specific event and moment in time that she did. And she told me, and I get goosebumps saying this because I fucking love this stuff. She told me it was the first time in 20 years that she felt love for her mum. That is the power of going through a tool and using a process on your wounds. So, my invitation for you to help you expand your awareness when you're triggered next, it is revealing something in you. It is revealing a limiting belief. I haven't spoken too much because it can actually be a limiting belief or a trauma, or it can be both. But we're talking about wounds today, so I'm going to focus on that. So, when you get triggered next, become aware that you're triggered. Become aware, don't project, don't blame, take ownership. It's your trigger. It's revealing something inside of you. Get yourself to answer this question. In one word, what's the thing that's triggered me? Say it in one word. Invalidation, criticism, lying, abuse, neglect, greed. It doesn't matter. Whatever the word is, find the word. Then I want to ask yourself again, what have I been through in my past when this trait hurt me, when this trait was painful, where it was too much or not enough? You will find a moment. It will probably be parents or ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, or your abusers, whatever you've been through. You will find a moment in time. That's your wound. Then apply a healing tool to that wound. And there's heaps of tools out there. You can use timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, NLP, breath work, meditation, journaling, psychedelics if you want to. There's tons of tools. Find a healer, find a coach, find someone to work through and help you through this journey. Heal through that wound, and then that particular trait won't trigger you as much, or it won't trigger you at all. And here is like, if I had a mic, this is a mic drop moment coming up for you. Whatever you don't heal, you attract into your life and you get triggered by it. Because whatever you put energy into expands. If anyone's done like self-development, you've probably heard of the RAS, the reticular activating system. Essentially, what you deem as important, you find and you attract. You're looking for it. But it works in the reverse in this instance, saying, I don't want this. I don't want criticism. I don't want pain. I don't want manipulation. I don't want lying. I don't want this because it's bad. But you're still looking for it. If I say, don't look for a yellow bus, what are you thinking about? A yellow fucking bus. What do you think you're going to be attracting? A yellow fucking bus. So because you're trying to avoid it, you're attracting it. Whatever you run away from, you run into. That blew my mind when I actually really understood what the fuck I just said. When I really got that. So until you heal through your wounds, you keep attracting them. This is where I talk about relationships a lot, where your intimate relationship is an energetic mirror of you. You attract your wounds into your relationship. Yes, I just said that. Your unhealed wounds, generally from mum or dad, you will attract into your relationships. You date, I said this to a client the other day, you date the unhealed parts of your parents. Holy shit. That was like a mind fuck when I heard that. You date or attract the unhealed parts of your parents because you're trying to avoid it, because you think it's bad, because it's a wound. You haven't healed it yet. So this is my invitation. Please fucking heal. Otherwise you keep attracting it. You will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you haven't healed. And until you heal it, you'll keep attracting it. What you run away from is what you run into. I hope you got value from this. Now, last thing I wanted to give you. This is what I do with my clients, but I thought I'd give it to you guys today. What I want you to do, write down mum 3 times, write down dad 3 times. So go mum, 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 dad, dad, dad. Now, I also want you to write down your current partner's name if you're in a relationship, or an ex-partner's name. If you never had a partner, just ignore this. So you've got mum, 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 dad, 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 and then you've got ex-partner, 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 or current partner, current partner, current partner. Write those down. So mum, 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 dad, 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 partner, partner, partner. Now, in one word, you're going to answer this for all 3 people. So you have 9 words by the end of this. In one word, what's the one thing you hate about that person? So let's start with mum. What's the one thing you hate about mum? Some people don't like the way I ask that question. That's okay. What's the one thing you wish you could change about mum? What's the one thing your mum triggers you the most with? In one word, what's the trait, action, or inaction? Might be resentment, frustration, anger, shame, dismissal, greed, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Write it down, write 3 words. So answer that question 3 times, and then you'll do the same for dad, and then you'll do the same for your ex-partner or your current partner. So you end up with 9 words. Those 9 words are 9 of your wounds for you to heal through. Those are 9 wounds for you to heal through. And if you look at that list, if you've paused the video and write it down, because it's quite like a mind-blowing exercise to do this, write down those words. So write down mum 3 times, dad 3 times, partner or ex-partner 3 times, and write down in one word, what's the one thing you wish you could change about this person, or the one thing you hate the most about this person, or the one thing you wish that triggers you the most about this person, and answer that 3 times. All of those words are all the things that you will get triggered by. They're all the things that you attract into your life. And until you heal through those wounds, you will keep attracting them. And that, again, if I had a mic, I would drop it right now. So I hope that made sense. I hope you got value from this. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And if you're interested in working with me and actually going through my balancing process, going through my healing modalities, I've got more than just that. I've got other processes I work with and what I do. Look at the link below. I've got a conscious community where I teach people to do this in a very safe, connected, loving space where you can connect with me, work with me. I do work with clients one-on-one. It's application only. There is a link down below if that feels alive for you. And if you got value from this, guys, please share this. Share this to someone that maybe your partner. It's really powerful if your partner understands this stuff as well. Or friends, family, loved ones. I would really appreciate that. I love you guys. Thank you for being here today, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya.